From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, playoff reveal replay, and Michael Langston breaking down some potentially extraordinarily great news on the recruiting front for the Florida State Seminoles. Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. cptallybar.com, the website. You can always hit the QR code on your screen. That's the funky-looking square barcode. It'll take you right to the website. You can place your order online to go, but, we recommend hanging around the Corner Pocket because it's always good times. Lunch specials from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. And on Wednesday, you get 5-piece chicken wings and French fries. Don't even have to think about your side dish. 5-piece chicken wings, best wings in town, and French fries. Check it out. Don't forget, tomorrow night, bingo, 7 p.m. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Hit the thumbs up, 5-star rating and review. Subscribe to Warchant.com. Subscribe to Warchant TV. That's our YouTube channel. You can watch the entire reveal show live in the flesh. We're grinding out late last night. Fun times, like over 900 people watching us at one point. So that was super, super cool. So today's show is going to be basically the replay of Corey and I talking about the playoff reveal, where we see things happening. A lot of crazy scenarios that we kind of play out in our heads. And then Michael Langston, Jeremiah Smith, the number one receiver in the country, I think the number 2 overall prospect in this entire cycle, trending well for the Noles, apparently. So Michael tells us why, maybe what we can expect, maybe some news sooner than later. So with all that said, we're going to have some commercial breaks here and there, but not now. Let's get to last night's show between Corey and myself. First, 10, 15 minutes is probably us just pontificating, so you might want to scrub through all that because you know who the top 4 is. It's Georgia, it's Ohio State, it's Michigan, it's Florida State. Washington didn't jump Florida State. Georgia did jump Ohio State, and they had every reason to. So anyhow, here's that show, about 45 minutes worth of it. Buckle up. What is up? One of the men before you here, so excited to be here, thinks a night like tonight is the reason that this stupid, silly sport is so awesome and charming. The other, just powering through a crazy day of grinding, being on the road. And this is part of the reason this silly sport is so silly. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He's Corey Clark. Hopefully you'll figure out who's who within the next few minutes. Thanks for being here for the Warchant.com playoff reveal reaction program. Hit the thumbs up on your screen. Put my hand under my mic stand. Like and spike, the kids say. Like and spike. Game has now gone final between Michigan State and Duke, so they will be unveiling the top 25 here shortly. Corey Clark, how are you first off, by the way, big dog?
I'm good as always. Thanks for asking. Drive was great. Recorded headlines early today, got in the car with Stephanie and drove up here to Atlanta. Now we're waiting to see where the Noles are and where everybody else is, for that matter.
Wrote a story before you recorded headlines and then got on the road too, man. Look at you. Yeah. Content machine.
It's what I do. It's just what I do.
All right. Do you anticipate any movement in the top 5 teams, Corey?
I mean, I would be surprised if Washington jumped Florida State. I know they beat Utah, but I don't know how impressive that win is. I don't know if that's so much more impressive than a home win over Miami. Like Utah might still be ranked in their polls, but if they are, they'll be like 24th. Yeah. So it's not like they beat a top 5 team. So I would be surprised if Washington jumped. But we were talking before we started. We would not be surprised if Georgia jumped Ohio State, and frankly, I think they should. Yeah. I think Georgia has proven over the last month, in my opinion anyway, that they are better than Ohio State, or they are playing better at the moment than Ohio State, and they probably should be the number 1 team in the country right now.
I mean, brand, reputation. Listen, I really do think this winning streak matters. I know maybe some of the guys that are out there playing, Beck, the quarterback, being one of the guys, wasn't part of all these wins, but to have that kind of pressure on you and to look the way they have the last few weeks. Meanwhile, again, Ohio State's wins, Notre Dame, Penn State no longer have the luster that they had maybe at any point. Some people argue over that. So, I would be very surprised if Ohio State holds serve and is still number 1. The Washington resume, though, looks very different than Florida State's right now on paper, but Maybe the rivalry aspect of the Miami win will give Florida State some favor here. Let's go ahead and look at these resumes as we wait for the. They're going right to the top 25. I don't want to unveil it and then have them like interrupt it. So maybe we should just wait and see how they do it.
I can't see it, so if you want to go ahead and read them off to us and whoever's watching, listening, that would be great.
I absolutely will. I think we might have time to go through this. Let's look at the resumes real quick, shall we? I don't know why it wants to mute me all the time, Corey. I'm going to unmute you too so you can talk about it. There's Georgia. We think they'll be number one. Look what they've done recently, taking out ranked teams back to back. They've got two toughies, though, at Tennessee, Alabama, SEC championship game coming up. Ohio State, meanwhile, throttled a very bad Michigan State team. Those rankings, you see, that's what the teams are ranked as of now before the latest poll has been unveiled. They're 20th and 10th, Penn State and Notre Dame. And, of course, the trip to the Big House. Michigan finally gets a ranked win. Number 10, Penn State. We'll see how far they fall. 24-15 was the final of that one. And obviously they host Ohio State final game. At Maryland could be tricky, though. Jim Harbaugh still unlikely to be on the sidelines. Florida State, meanwhile, they've got that win over LSU, 45-24. The Duke game, I don't know if that really has any bearing any longer. But you got at Florida, you got Louisville. Most likely, we think, in the ACC championship game. They're 11th. They might even move up to the top 10 tonight, Corey. And then look at that Washington resume. Again, Arizona is now 19th before the poll comes out, Corey, but they were unranked at that point, so take that for what it's worth. Oregon was number 6 when Washington beat them at home by 3 points. And then last week, Utah came to Seattle and got shut out in the second half. That's incorrect. It should be 38-28, I think, actually. Maybe I was.
No, I think it's 35-28 was the
35.
final of that game.
There we go. Thanks, Corey. I know I screwed up. Couldn't throw a perfect game. Wouldn't be as fun if a perfect game went down. At Oregon State, that's a legitimate upset alert game for Washington. And if you're a Florida State fan, I think you're probably going to root for the Beavs. What do you think about? It's tough to look at that resume and listen, I know we're a pro Florida State podcast, but I think if Clemson was a top 10 team like Oregon, if Miami was in the teens like Utah, we'd be clamoring to be ranked higher than 4th. So
yeah, but it's like, again, I keep coming back to this, and we'll talk about this more as this top. What's that music?
Just some background padding.
Oh, okay,
man.
I love it, man. It's a good jam. It does not Washington does have a better resume than Florida State, and if they beat Oregon State this week, they probably should jump ahead of Florida State. But again, Michigan and Ohio State play each other, so one of those is in Ohio. If Ohio State loses to Michigan, it's not like they've done enough other than that to have a chance at the playoff, in my opinion, right? And same thing with Michigan. Like, if Michigan loses to Ohio State, who'd they beat? What's their best win? Like, Florida State's resume is as good as Michigan's. Michigan just beats teams beating them by a bigger margin, but their best win isn't any better, especially today as we look at these rankings. The win over LSU on a neutral field will be as good as beating Penn State at Penn State, in my opinion. But so anyway, and same with Ohio State. Like, I think Florida State's best win is still pretty good. And I think, Michigan, Ohio State playing each other. It's all, and again, I'm knocking on wood. Florida State has to win 3 more games. Well, 2 more games. They're winning this weekend for this to even matter. That's granted. We know it. But if they stay undefeated, Washington stays undefeated, Ohio State and Georgia, Florida State will probably be the 4. But they're in. The nightmare scenario, and it's probably less than 1% chance of happening. No, maybe like 4% chance of happening. Is Washington winning out, Michigan holding serve, and Alabama beating Georgia in the SEC championship game. Maybe Georgia gets a benefit of the doubt for being what they've been and having the ranked wins. I mean, they'll have beaten Tennessee this week. They'll have beaten Ole Miss. They'll have beaten Missouri. And then they lose a 1-possession game to an Alabama brand. Meanwhile, Florida State maybe ends up playing a Louisville team that's got 2 losses. If they lose to Kentucky, let's say. In that scenario, and I don't think it's likely to happen, even that scenario to play out with these teams winning and losing, but even to put 2 1-loss teams ahead of Florida State, that'd be not a crime, but really probably hard to sell to people. But you could see maybe an argument
if you're those Alabama, Georgia
Well,
folks.
it wouldn't have to be 2 1-losses. It's just one loss team. Like if Michigan, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. If Michigan and Ohio State are both undefeated, or Michigan and Washington are both undefeated,
Right.
then you're saying Alabama and Georgia would. I don't think an undefeated Power 5 team. I just don't think there's any chance they get left out of the playoff, and especially because Alabama and Florida State played the same team. They have a common opponent. One beat the brakes off the team. The other one won at home because the quarterback got hurt. You know, I don't know how you could look at those two teams objectively and say one deserves, even with the loss at home to a Texas team, deserves to be ahead of Florida State. So I don't think that's a real scenario. I could be wrong. I guess I could be really naive. I did live through 2014. I just think it's more about Florida State staying undefeated where they fall in the dominoes.
Polls are out now. North Carolina 20th, Notre Dame 19th, Utah dropped to 22nd, LSU up 4 spots. They're now 15th in the country. That helps out.
Yeah.
Ole Miss drops 4 spots to 13 after getting dismantled against Georgia. Penn State only drops 2 spots. They're 12th. Oregon State moves up 1 spot. So the Beavers are number 11. They will host, again, Washington this coming weekend in Corvallis.
So look, man, Washington has to play Oregon State. You said it would be an upset. Washington's an underdog.
Yeah.
So it's not an upset technically. And then they also have to play Oregon again, most likely. Like they absolutely, if they get through this thing unscathed, they absolutely deserve to be in and I would say a 1-loss Washington team might deserve to get in over like a 1-loss Michigan team because they played a tougher schedule. You know, if they even lose
Michigan
one of these
won't
next
make
two.
it, man. The Big Ten champion is going to be undefeated. You know, Ohio State
Yeah.
will be undefeated and they'll beat Iowa. Louisville up 1 spot. They're 10th. That's very good for Florida State. That would be 2 top 15 wins. Again, LSU was number 5 when Florida State beat them, for whatever that's worth. Missouri up 5 spots. That's crazy. Who did they beat this past
Tennessee
week?
beat them badly. Yeah.
They're up 5 spots. They're number 9 now. That's a win that Georgia now has even some more juice. I think Missouri was 12th, actually, when they played 2 weeks ago. Good to see Louisville hanging around even after that sloppy win against Virginia. But, hey, it's a meat grinder in the ACC, especially on Thursday night. Number 8, I would imagine, is that going to be Texas? Or I'm missing somebody that's going to be number 8. Alabama, I would assume, and then Texas 7, and then probably Oregon 6, and then we'll see what the top 5 shakes out. They're dragging it out. They're stretching, Corey. They're stretching for whatever reason. Let us know what you folks think in the comment section. We'll pop them up. Hit the thumbs up. We certainly would appreciate it. Alabama, they are number 8. They are holding serve. They were 8th last week as well, 9-1. I think they've got an FCS opponent before the Iron Bowl, which, hey, man, Hugh Freeze, Iron Bowl, tricky. Tricky.
Okay.
Now, tricky. So, yeah, Bama 9-1, their loss, obviously at home to Texas. Their quality wins, I guess, is what, LSU at this point. Ole Miss as well. Texas, number 7 officially. Now they're 9-1. Their lone defeat, neutral game against Oklahoma at the Texas State Fair. The Red River rivalry, they call it now. So
used to be the shootout, but they got rid of that.
And that's what those games are at their best. They're shootouts. But, you know, not going to get political. All right, they got all the guys on the screen now. Look at that. Greg McElroy again, the call to the big show.
Okay, all right, G-Mac.
So him and Joey Galloway joining our guy Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit at home like us.
So when you think about it, it is crazy. So out of the top 8 teams, Georgia, Alabama play. It's almost like a playoff is already starting. You know what I mean? Like it really is. Like Florida State plays a top 10 team right now. We'll see if Louisville's still top 10. I guess Florida State fans hope they are. But
they've got Miami and they've got Kentucky, by the way.
And then they play, and then Florida State, if things break right, they have a very, very high percentage of being in the championship game. It's not official yet, but I think even if they lose to Miami, I saw this, Aslan, even if Louisville loses to Miami, the tiebreaker scenarios, they would have an 88% chance of getting in, even if they lose to Miami. So some things would really have to break wrong for them, which could happen. But I think Virginia Tech still has a shot. But either way, you wouldn't want that. You'd rather play North Carolina than Virginia Tech for these purposes. But it's cool that like Georgia, Alabama, that's a de facto playoff game, man. There's no guarantee that if Georgia loses to Alabama, that Georgia makes it if there are other undefeated teams. Ohio State, Michigan clearly is a playoff game. Florida State's next 2 games are all playoff games. Like if Florida State loses, they're done. We all got that. So they're playing for the playoff every week, every weekend.
Okay, Oregon, I'm sorry, Corey. Oregon is number 6.
Yep.
So not a lot of mystery there. We'll see if Michigan stays at 5 or jumps into the mix
Washington,
here.
you mean?
Washington, I'm sorry. Who did I say?
You said Michigan.
Oh, look at that. No mystery. No save your anger for another week, everybody. Washington is still number 5. They're 10-0.
Yeah.
Which means
Florida State's 4.
4. Michigan
So
will be 3. And
here's the thing, though. We'll see what 2 and 1. That could flip. But, like, I am of the opinion, and I people might disagree with me, I do think if Washington beats Oregon State at Oregon State, they will deserve to jump Florida State. And, folks, don't get mad because, again, Florida State is, in my opinion, is in control of its own destiny. Florida State is in control of its own destiny. Washington still has to play Oregon after that, and Ohio State and Michigan will knock one of the other ones out. So as long as you're in the top 5 right now and no one-loss teams have jumped you, which hasn't happened, then you're in good shape as long as you keep winning.
Florida State officially 4th. That logo is there. Michigan is 3rd. Both teams 10-0. Michigan has to go at Maryland this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State hosts North Alabama.
Yeah.
So, good for them. Good for us. So the 2, they're going to probably stretch this one out for a hot minute, I would assume. Try to create some
They got to get to that other basketball game. They can't wait too long.
That's true. Yeah, we got Kentucky and Kansas coming up after the break, kids.
Yep, that's right.
By the way, this is also your Wake Up Warchant podcast for Wednesday. We'll do Renegade Express on Thursday. So get your questions in over at the Tribal Council, warchant.com. Hit the thumbs up, too, by the way, if you're watching us. 770 of you staying up past curfew on a school night. That's awesome. Love it.
Cool to be relevant again, gang. Cool to see that logo in this conversation on this show.
What would we be talking about if Florida State was like 7-3 right now, Corey? Playing North Alabama. I mean, not in the playoff. Oh, Ohio State's 2.
There you go.
We called it. We know what we're doing on this show every now and then, kids.
Yeah.
React, Corey. The Georgia Bulldogs.
So let's just play out. Let's play out this scenario. So here's what I think happens. I think if Washington, and these are all big ifs, but if Washington, this is why some of this actually does matter. If Washington plays and beats Oregon State, I think they jump Florida State. So Florida State is 5 going into the regular season finale. Now, again, I'm just going on who's going to be favored. Let's say Florida State beats Florida. Mm-hmm. Let's say Michigan beats Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Well, then you're looking at a Final Four going into those ACC championship game, the conference championship games. That's Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if Georgia wins and beats Alabama and Florida State beats Louisville, you would almost certainly, unless Washington loses, which again is a big if because they're playing Oregon, they might be the underdog. You could be playing Georgia and New Orleans. Like if you're looking that far ahead, which I would suggest not doing, there's way too much football in tight, tough football games to be played. But I understand like that's the reason for this exercise. That's the reason for the whole show is to project what would happen if it ended today. And right now, if it ended today, which it doesn't, because again, Michigan and Ohio State play each other, Georgia and Florida State are playing each other in the Sugar Bowl.
I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised, though. I thought maybe that extra ranked win against Utah this past weekend would have let Washington jump past Florida State. But hey, maybe they recognize the importance of that rivalry and that maybe Miami is a little bit better than their record indicates, possibly. So.
Well, I do think that whatever this even means when it comes to people in a room talking, I think that gap has shrunk. And then again, that is a big win if Washington can go get a win at Oregon State. That's a big win. That's a playoff game for them.
I agree with you. I'm shaking my head at the analytics they just showed. Somehow, I don't know. Ohio State's got like a 38th strength of schedule and Georgia's 70. I don't know how that is even possible, but I'm sorry to interrupt, Corey. Go ahead.
No, it's good. It's good. Well, yeah, that's winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game is going to be the playoffs. Yes, right. We know. And the loser won't be. These are all playoff games coming up. All of them. Like, if Alabama beats Georgia, they probably jump Georgia. They're probably in. Like, it's going to be fascinating. Maybe it's because I haven't had to pay attention for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I don't remember 5 undefeated teams this late in the season from Power 5 schools. Do you? this seems out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And they all play each other.
Well, because
they play somebody really good that's in the top 10.
The Pac-12 has just not been a factor here historically of late.
Yeah.
They've always had, 2 lost champions, so they've always had a loss going at this point. Feel like, Big 12 team, maybe, Oklahoma, Texas, not Texas. It's usually been Oklahoma that would get into the playoff. But yeah, in terms of Power 5 undefeated teams, especially these brands, that's crazy. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, all undefeated, and all have played like legitimate teams, some more than others.
Yeah.
Clearly, I think Michigan being the weakest link out of everybody when it comes to that sort of resume thing. Let me pull up this stuff. It might not be as easily readable as it was on television. They're comparing Florida State to Washington. SOR strength of record, Washington second, Florida State third. Strength of schedule, Washington 43rd, Florida State 55th. They do list the key win being against Duke for Florida State, and then obviously against LSU's 15th. Meanwhile, Washington has number 6 Oregon and Arizona, who's 17th now, but again was not ranked when they both played. And I think that was actually in the desert in Tucson. So very comparable, it seems like, there with the analytics when it comes to those two teams right there. But yeah, man, the Oregon State game. I know I said upset alert, and you point out the fact that they're not even favored. So, it could happen sooner than later, and maybe not even Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game for Washington to get knocked out of this picture. But here are some of those numbers: strength of record, strength of schedule. I think strength of record reflects the chance that an average top 25 team would have the same record or better given the schedule.
All right. Not quite understand what that means, but it's cool. It's fine.
And the strength of schedule is your rank amongst FBS teams of games already played, schedule strength.
Yeah, but like look at all those teams in the top 4, like even Georgia. So it's 39, 43, 55, 65, and then Georgia's 78. So none of those undefeated teams have a good strength of schedule from that metric. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Interesting.
Florida State's got the 3rd best. They're just behind Ohio State and Washington. Now, Washington, I assume, goes up when they play Oregon State, but then Florida State's will go up when they play Louisville. So,
All right. Well, there we go. We won't keep you folks too much longer here as they're hashing everything out. They're showing the numbers that you're seeing on your screen right now, comparing Ohio State to Georgia, which, again, strength of schedule, Ohio State 39th, Georgia 78th. I don't get that when you're, Penn State right now is 12th, Notre Dame is 19th. Meanwhile, Missouri is 9th, Ole Miss is 13th, and you just beat those teams back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, but that's it, right? That's the only two. They've played some awful teams. Like the other,
I still think beating like Auburn and Florida.
No, I'm saying, well, I do too. I grew up. I know college football, but when it comes to these metrics, Auburn doesn't. The winning at Auburn isn't as big a deal as like we might think it is. These numbers don't think it's a big deal. That kind of thing. I'm not dismissing a win at Auburn. And they play Tennessee. What's Tennessee ranked? They're in the top 25, right? I'm looking at the scroll.
17th, I think, because I think they got knocked down after their defeat.
Right. They're still waiting on it. So Carolina's 20th. All right. Okay.
Yeah, they're still hanging around.
So 18, Tennessee's 18. So if they beat Tennessee, I guess Tennessee gets knocked out of that's what's so goofy about this. You beat Tennessee.
18th. Tennessee's 18th.
Yeah. So they're 18th, but it's like, okay, then next week if Georgia beats Tennessee 31-15, and Tennessee goes out of the top 25, does it now not count as a top 25 win? So it's not like Georgia, it kind of hurts Georgia to beat Tennessee. Do you know what I mean? Like they make the opponent's record worse. Now it's not a notable win because they just lost for the 3rd or 4th time. That's what's so goofy about all this.
Well, that just happened to Washington. They did not put the Utah game on that graphic to show as a notable win, although Utah is still ranked. But
Utah's still ranked, yeah.
Yeah, they're ranked a little bit.
They're 22 higher, though. But yeah, that's what's so goofy about this. So I guess Florida State fans should either want, just in case you're worried about a one-loss SEC team or somehow a one-loss Big Ten team getting over an undefeated Florida State team, root for North Carolina and Louisville to keep winning, because one of them will be in Charlotte almost certainly. I think you'd rather have Louisville. And then if Louisville they're favored by a point in Miami. It ain't going to be a gimme by any means, and obviously Kentucky won't be either. Really, if they can just win one of the next two and be 10, that would be a 10-win Louisville team, top 15. LSU would be top 12. That's a good enough resume. Clemson, maybe they keep winning. They're 8-4, and their only loss at home was to you. Like, by the end of this thing, Florida State's schedule could look, pretty daunting, at least on par with some of these other schools they're competing against.
I sure hope Claudio is right. The no way in hell a one-loss team jumps an undefeated FSU team.
I'm with you, Claudio. I would be stunned if that happened. I think it goes against what this sport is all about. Florida State scheduled LSU. They scheduled Florida. They played at Clemson. Like, what do you want them to do? And if they go undefeated, but again, it's almost not even worth worrying about that. But the real
saying, like Georgia losing 31-28 in Atlanta to Alabama could. I'd be crazy though to put two teams from the SEC that both have one loss, both conferences.
Yeah, and over an undefeated team that beat two of the teams from your conference, that conference. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be it would be just preposterous. But odds are, folks, there won't be 4 undefeated teams. There probably won't even be 3 undefeated teams when the playoffs are announced. There's a good chance Washington loses. There's at least a slim chance that Florida State loses. Georgia has Tennessee and Alabama. Like all these, Ohio State, Michigan, obviously one of them is going to lose. The only thing I think that's certain, Aslan, as we round this up, there will be an undefeated Big Ten team, right?
Yeah.
I don't see whoever wins that Ohio State Michigan game then losing the championship game to Iowa.
I don't know if Michigan at Maryland could be tricky. And listen, Maryland's not a world beater, but this whole Harbaugh, man, what they're dealing with right now is just madness. I know they're very senior laden. They've got good leadership, but I mean, it could wear on them maybe as soon as this weekend, not having their head coach and dealing with all this kind of outside noise. But I get your point. Like, if Ohio State's got Minnesota this week, and if they walk into the big house and beat Michigan, yeah, there's no way they're losing to Iowa and Indianapolis. So.
Right. You wouldn't think.
It's not official yet. I don't think Iowa hasn't officially punched their ticket, but if they win this weekend, they will. All-state playoff predictor, Michigan with the number one, the best chances at 67% of making the playoff. Florida State number 2 at 65%. Explain this to me. Ohio State third at 64%. Georgia 52%. Alabama 41%. Those are your fifth. And then Oregon is sixth.
So Washington is even one of the favorites. That's why, again, I think anybody that watched that first time Washington and Oregon played, I think you feel like Washington got a little fortunate to win that game. The Oregon coach, Lanning, made a couple of odd decisions. I think if they play again, Oregon would be favored. I think Oregon would probably win. That's crazy. And because Georgia has to play Alabama and Tennessee, and I think that what takes into account is I think what most people are thinking is if Georgia loses in the SEC championship game, if there are 3 undefeated teams, they're out. They're out. And which is how it should be. Sorry, win all your games. The other teams won all their games. Florida State would have put up 45 on Ole Miss too.
Yeah.
They just would have. Ole Miss is a little bit inflated. Their defense is horrid. We knew that was going to be a boat race. I'm glad they jumped Ohio State just because I don't think Ohio State's been all that impressive all year. No. And their big wins keep getting lessened. But it all plays out in a couple of weeks.
We'll take one question on the way out here. Again, if you get the thumbs up, we'd appreciate it. Wow, we got a spike. 763 people now in the chat. What is up, man? People just want to keep hanging out. They want to go late into the night talking about
the Noles, man. This fan base is starved, buddy. It's been 9 years since we've been talking about this stuff.
Look what's going on, Sankey. Look what's going on, Greg Sankey. You don't want this brand? You don't want this brand, man? Come on.
Wait, what is that? 4.1 million watched the game this past weekend? It's the 6th time they've had over 4 million viewers watching one of their games. Come on, man. What are you waiting on?
This is a hypothetical from our guy, well-dressed Pete Cantone. If Georgia's 1, Michigan 2, Florida State 3, Oregon 4th, and Bama beats Georgia, does Georgia make it in over Oregon? Is Bama number 1? No. Michigan or Florida State, one of the undefeated teams would be number 1. That is a good question. I wonder if if a one-loss team does make it in, well, that would be 2 probably because Bama would go in over Georgia, right? Like Georgia doesn't make it in over Oregon and get in with Bama if they lost to Bama because that would put 2 teams from the SEC with 1 loss. I don't know if the committee has the appetite to argue that and have that on their conscience as the last 4-team playoff wraps up. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code WARCHANT, BOGO. WARCHANT, BOGO. No spaces, not case sensitive. You can do it however you want. Use that promo code and buy an item and get one of equal or lesser value for absolutely free. Keep gassing you up on this Vitamin Energy Workout Plus. It's the #1 pre-workout shot out there on the market. Energy that lasts up to 7 hours. 260 milligrams of all-natural caffeine, L-arginine, and beta-alanine. This stuff gets the pump. It also puts me in kind of a good mood. Almost maybe as good as the Mood Plus, but not quite. Felt real good in the gym yesterday. Good box jump. 10-pound medicine ball, 42-inch boxes. Conquered. Half shot. Didn't even take the whole thing. Just a half shot. So whatever 1.93 fluid ounces is divided by 2, that's what I did. I got all the energy I needed to kick it in the gym. So highly suggest you give it a shot. Shake it and take it. Go to vitaminenergy.com. Use that promo code WARCHAMP, BOGO. WARCHAMP, BOGO.
How about this? No, there's got to be I was trying to think of a scenario where no SEC teams get in. Like Alabama beats Georgia and then it's Oregon, Washington, Florida State, and Michigan. But obviously that would not happen. So, yeah, there's no really way that will happen. I don't think.
Well, Texas, I mean, if Bama beats Georgia and everyone's got the same record, Texas beat Alabama at home.
That's what, when Florida State fans worry about Bama jumping an undefeated Florida State team, which, again, don't worry about that. Just, worry about your team winning games. How is Bama going to jump Texas when they played each other head to head and Texas beat them on their field? If Texas wins outright, Texas has to go before Alabama.
I mean, but you'll look at
so that's how it works. That's how it works, Aslan. So Alabama beats Georgia. They both have 1 loss. Texas has 1 loss. Texas beat Alabama, who beat Georgia. So your 4 is Michigan, Florida State, Washington, and Texas. Texas is the 1-loss team that gets in.
I just don't.
How could you put Alabama and Georgia in and not Texas when Texas played Alabama and beat Alabama?
Because I literally think that's the only ranked win they're going to have other than whoever they play in the Big 12 championship game.
But you're putting Alabama in because they beat Georgia head to head.
And they beat Ole Miss, and they beat Tennessee.
Yeah. You're putting Alabama in because they beat Georgia. It's a great win.
Yes.
But Texas beating Alabama at Alabama
2.5 months ago.
I mean, all right, well, then LSU doesn't matter either. Like, what's the point of doing this?
The LSU game's as sexy as it was. That's what I'm trying to get at.
What's the point of all this then? Don't schedule tough non-conference games. Like, what's the point? What's the point of Texas going and beating Alabama at Alabama if when it's supposed to matter most in late December, a game like that gets dismissed because it happened 2.5 months ago? Alabama got really dominated on both sides of the ball in that game. I know the score was close, but that was not all that close physically at the line of scrimmage. And now because they run through the SEC after that, well, Alabama's got to be in.
Texas looks very Texas-y again, though, man. They're squeaking by, barely beating
quarterback,
bad
though, right? They didn't have their quarterback.
Well, they had their quarterback last week against TCU, and they had to throw up a prayer on 3rd and 12 to ice that game out. And Jalen Milroe looks better now, and maybe
he does,
things out offensively. So, I mean, again, I'm trying to play some devil's advocate here, but I do agree with your sentiment, though, Corey.
I didn't even think about that, Aslan, but Texas is ranked ahead of Alabama right now. And Texas will have to beat somebody in a championship game, probably somebody that's ranked.
I think it's Oklahoma State, and I don't know where
Oklahoma State's 23rd. Oklahoma's like 20th. Not a good showing by the Cowpokes down there in Orlando this past weekend, by the way. Yeesh. Maybe I thought I saw Oklahoma. Maybe they're not ranked. I thought they were. But so, yeah, if Texas is now ahead of Alabama, and Texas is ranked ahead of Alabama because Texas beat Alabama. Like that's the only reason right now you have Texas ranked ahead of Alabama, this committee, right?
Oklahoma 14th, by the way.
Okay. So right now, that's why Texas is number 7 and Alabama is number 8. It's because of what happened 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So then you couldn't then 3 weeks from now say, never mind, the head-to-head doesn't matter. It mattered on November 14th, but on December 3rd, never mind, that's not as big a deal. So I think that's just crazy. So there is a scenario, a very, very, very unlikely one, where Alabama beats Georgia, and then who do you put it if there are 3 undefeated teams and Alabama, Georgia, and Texas all have 1 loss? Who gets in? And I know this is all a hypothetical. Yeah. This is almost certainly not going to happen, folks. It's
Alabama.
It's the point of the show.
Alabama.
You think Alabama gets in over Texas?
I think it's about how you're looking right now, resume. I think Alabama will have more ranked wins. I know they didn't win the head-to-head, but I think they can – listen, man, Florida State didn't win the head-to-head against Miami in 2000, still made the national championship game ahead of them because they looked better.
But you know why they did, though.
Because they lost earlier than Miami did.
No. Because Washington was at 11-1 too. Florida State, Washington, Miami were all 11-1, and Washington beat Miami. And Miami beat Florida State. So Miami fans couldn't argue too much about we should be in over Florida State because the retort is, well, then Washington should be in over you if you want to go just by head-to-head. If Washington had been 9-3 or 8-4, Miami would have gotten in that year. So there is a little difference. And I just that would be – I'm almost rooting for that to happen. That would be fascinating. That would be incredible. Like Georgia, so that's the scenario. Michigan beats Ohio State. Washington wins out. Florida State wins out. And Alabama beats Georgia. And Texas wins out. So Alabama, Texas, and Georgia all have 1 loss. Ooh. That would be fascinating to see who's in there. It would be fascinating.
I mean, you're pretty steadfast. You go with Texas?
I don't know how you pick Alabama. I could see you picking. Well, then how do you pick Georgia?
2-time defending champions on pretty much a road game in Atlanta, Georgia.
No, it's not. It's not a road game. That is legit 50-50. That the Alabama fans, I promise you, show up for that game. But then Texas beat that team. So how do you put Alabama above Texas? I get it. So maybe Louisville. Maybe they just say, screw all this. This is too hard. Put Ohio State in. Put Iowa in. Let's see Iowa versus one of these teams. That would be fascinating if those 3 teams all end up with 1 loss and there's only 1 spot left. I personally think – I don't even know. I don't even have an opinion. I have no idea. I would put Texas in, but I understand why that probably wouldn't happen. I don't see how an SEC team gets left out, but I do think head-to-head has to matter, like CHJ says right there. I do think it does. I think Alabama's win over Georgia would matter, but then Texas's win over Alabama has to matter too.
See, I don't agree with that. We can disagree, though. Seminole win says 2-time defending means nothing, Aslan. And listen, man, that's okay. Did you say that in 2014, though?
Well, they weren't 2 times because
but they were defending champion.
Game. Yeah.
And listen, that's a large part of the reason that everybody was arguing that Florida State deserved to be higher in the poll.
Well, that and the zero
stress, man, of being a defending champion. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm saying, but people were also arguing there was that 0 in the loss column that nobody else had.
I know, but Georgia they got 0 losses right now. But
no,
again,
I'm saying I'm saying like that's what Florida State fans were really arguing about. Is like, hey, that L column still has a 0 under it. Whether Florida State won the national championship last year, they're defending or not, they still haven't lost the game this year, and that's what stopped mattering. Georgia's done everything it needs to do. Georgia's a deserving number 1 right now.
Yeah. We've got over 800 people watching, Corey. They love it, man.
I wonder if any Texas fans are watching it. Hey, so Red, he's right. He says the new playoff format will have the same convo. Sure, the difference is you're going to be arguing between 2 and 3 loss teams, and not like let's look right now at these 17, 16 teams right now that would be fighting: Iowa, LSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Penn State, Oregon State. That's who you're talking about. Would be arguing to see if they get in the back half of the playoff, and Louisville, Missouri, and all that.
So it's your 6 highest ranked conference champions, and then the 6 highest ranked teams remaining. That's your 12-team playoff. So it's not necessarily your top 12 teams. It's your 6, but it probably will work out close to that, right? It's going to be like what, 10 or 11 of the top 12 teams probably end up making it every single year, and the one outlier that's maybe not in the top 12. So
yeah, you would think like if somehow like Kansas State got into the Big 12 championship game and knocked off Texas.
Like last year when they did TCU, for example.
Yeah, but they're only ranked 17th. well, then they might not be getting in. So you don't automatically get in by winning your conference. You still have to have had a good year. Which I think most of these conferences are going to the non-divisions anyway, or at least SEC and ACC have. So I feel like that's going to take care of itself when they're playing the conference championship games. Those teams will have had to have good years just to get there.
So when we say 6 highest, so like the Sun Belt would count? Like if the Sun Belt champion is 13th and then Kansas State wins the Big 12? Like they're
Buddy,
out?
I don't know. I didn't even know I'll be honest, I didn't even know they came up with that format. I didn't even know that was set in stone for next year.
That's it. Over 900 people now watching. Thanks,
So,
everybody being here. Hit that thumbs up.
Yeah, smash that like button. So look, if Florida State, I think right now, obviously you got to win out. You've got to win out. At Florida is not a joke. Clearly, it never is. And then Louisville, if you're playing Louisville, which odds are, I think it's a 95% chance you will be. That's a good defense. That will not be a walkover either. But you're going to be favored in both these games, and that's why you said the playoff predictor had Florida State at what, 65%?
Second best, yes,
Yeah,
correct.
second best, because Georgia is playing better right now, clearly, than Florida State, but Georgia has a tougher schedule. They have a tougher ask at Tennessee, who's capable, and then obviously Alabama looks like a different team now that they've unleashed that quarterback to just let him run wild. I think you like Florida State's chances immensely. You just wonder about the matchup in the playoff if they get there, right? That's kind of what you worry about. That's why I always had a problem with 14. They should not have had to go to Pasadena. It was ridiculous that they did. You hope you get a favorable matchup. And what does that mean? To me, it means avoiding Georgia, right?
Yes.
It means
First
avoiding
and foremost.
Georgia. Maybe somebody else takes care of Georgia. In the semifinal, you don't have to beat them. It would be very hard to envision this Florida State team beating Georgia on New Year's Day and then having to turn around and beat Michigan. That's a lot. I mean, you'd have Darrell Jackson back, which would be great, but man, that's a lot. Those are two really good teams. So have somebody else take care of Georgia for you.
Yeah, but you have a healthy Jordan Travis too, we think. So that probably helps your offense.
4 weeks of rest would really help the entire team.
And listen, as you mentioned on the show yesterday, Corey, like every team is going to have 4 weeks of rest, but like your quarterback is going to benefit the most from that more than probably anybody else out there and on any other team.
Well, look at the teams that are in the playoff right now, man, or the playoff race. Like Carson Beck, it's not all of a sudden, oh, wait, it's a fresh leg Carson Beck. Look out. You got that element of the running.
Especially Brock Bowers, though, and Ladd McConkey.
No, but they're there anyway. Like, they're going to be there, clearly. But I'm saying, like, when it comes to the quarterback, a healthy running Jordan Travis, who's willing and able to run at an elite level because he is an elite runner. Look at those teams, man. Washington, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. None of them have a quarterback like that that can take over a game with his legs. Florida State does. Theoretically, Florida State does. He has not done it in really a year, but he can take over a game with his legs, and that's what those defenses would have a real hard time with. Obviously, you got the two dudes out wide, but they'd also have a really hard time with a fresh-legged, rejuvenated, lightning-fast Jordan Travis.
Sorry for keeping you guys from Kentucky, Kansas. 912 people. Minute 40. We're going to let Corey go. But Z-Chan, our guy, Zach, I do see your super chat now, Z-Chan. But we got so many comments that got flushed out. But he says, Corey, you can control my destiny like FSU controls theirs.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Z-Chan. That's very nice. And he was nice enough to have Brady and my ex-wife at his tailgate on Saturday before the Miami game. Had some really good tacos that Brady indulged in.
Was Keith out of commission, or did you guys hop around?
No, Keith was there, but that was Keith's tailgate's maybe not Shanna's speed necessarily. It's a little too. This is more of a late. Z-Chan's a little more laid back, a little more college football-esque, not like recess.
Okay, all right. Well, Claudio says he does not want to face Oregon. They will no huddle our defense to death. 2014 all over again. Oregon needs to lose to Washington. Kenny Dillingham said that that's the best offense they've had since Marcus Mariota and Chip Kelly were there. It's even better than the offense I led last year, he said today. So
yeah, I think I don't disagree with that. I think you'd rather face Washington than Oregon, because I also think Washington's defense is a sieve. I think Florida State would score lots of points against that defense. But I don't know, man. Like, again, you wouldn't play them in the semifinals. I couldn't envision a scenario where Florida State and Oregon is the matchup.
Well,
I guess it
State's
could be
number
2-3. I guess it could be a 2-3 matchup, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess that would mean Georgia would have to somebody would have to lose, right? I guess they would. I guess that's how it could be if Ohio State loses. I just don't. I think Oregon would be the 4. So I don't know how they would match up in the first round, but I'm sure they could. I'm sure there's a way they could do it. I'm just not thinking of it.
Maybe Florida State jumps Michigan. Florida State's 1, Michigan's 2.
How would that happen? The big win over Louisville, they're going to take that into account more than the win over Ohio State?
Well, like Georgia loses, Alabama's got 1 loss, and they think that, Oregon beating Washington's sexier. And I think, man, Oregon, let me pull up their helmet schedule here as I'm looking at it. I mean, Oregon will have had wins over Utah, Washington. That's about, Oregon's not had nearly the schedule that Washington has had.
Well, and USC being bad and Colorado being what we all knew Colorado would turn into has really lessened but they play Oregon State too, don't they?
Who? Oregon? Yeah. Civil War. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they got that one ahead. So Oregon State finishes the year with Washington and Oregon?
Yep.
Yikes. Go get them, Beavers.
Yeah, man. Washington had Arizona. They had Oregon, Utah. They'll have Oregon State. So that's 4 legitimate teams in the regular season, and they got to turn around and play the Pac-12 championship game. All right. Anything else to say, Corey? We're under 900 people, so maybe that's our.
Oh, maybe that was our barrier. And I don't want to miss another second of the Kansas-Kentucky basketball game.
Hold on, we got some super chats real quick. $5 in the jar. FSU fan 1993. Speaking of rest, by the way, thank you, Z-Chan.
Yeah, thank you thank you, Z-Chan.
Thank you, FSU fan 1993. Speaking of rest and bye weeks, do we have to play any of our starters this week, and should we?
I mean, you're gonna make them practice all week and not play. Like, it's fun to play. This is why they lift all them weights. This is why they run all those sprints and do all those squats so they can play in front of you guys. So yes, the starters will play. It's just a matter of when you pull them out. I agree with the sentiment though. Let them play a few series and be done. They need to get they need to get rest, no injury risk, get healthy. And then get ready for Florida and Louisville. Again, this game, if it's handled the correct way, which I think they will, comes at the absolute perfect time for this football team.
I don't know if Rachel's being sarcastic. I am a Jim Harbaugh apologist here. She says she's scratching her head as to why Michigan got knocked down after they won on Saturday in the face of adversity. They're still third, Rachel. They were third last week as well.
Yeah, they're still fine. And the adversity they faced was their own.
And 110,000 people in the number 2 rushing defense in the country that they ran right at 31 straight times.
I think she meant the adversity of
Go Blue!
I think she meant the adversity of, everybody calling them cheaters.
Michigan versus the world!
Yeah, man. America's school. America's
team, baby.
Yep. Hey, and if they want out of the Big Ten, bounce. If that opens up a spot, go run. Go come to the ACC. Florida State will trade you in a heartbeat.
And then White Boy Magic. This avatar looks curious. All right. Public bathroom selfie. I like it. Gold. $2 in the jar. Thanks, White Boy Magic. Washington State beat Oregon State, so Washington can too.
Oh, Washington absolutely can. It's a pick 'em essentially. It's like a coin toss. But Oregon State, by the way, what happened to Washington State? They fell off a cliff.
They did, yeah. That Jake Dicker guy picked a fight with Herbie or Pat McAfee or something, and then
no, it was Lee Corso. He talked. He made fun of. He talked, and I don't disagree with the sentiment he had, but he called out Lee Corso, and I don't think they've won a game since. So don't do that anymore, man. I think the difference with Oregon State, what makes this game pretty compelling, is that they do play defense. There aren't a ton of great defenses out there in that part of the country, and I don't know that Oregon State has a great defense, but they have a pretty good one. And they have a quarterback that Dabo didn't like, but is plenty good enough to go win that game. Like, Utah did not have the quarterback capable maybe of pulling off that upset. Oregon State does.
We got Michigan slander. We're going to wrap it up.
Here we go.
Here we go. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That's what this show needs to become. It's just all the other fan bases attacking each other. Just attacking each other.
Let's see here. Yeah, Cam Ward, Washington State's quarterback. He is a good QB, but And yeah, listen, Washington, even if they do beat Oregon State, they got to play Washington State. It's the Apple Cup. It's a rivalry game. I'm sure they probably have the same anxiety that some Florida State fans have about having to play Florida.
What are the odds that Washington goes undefeated with those final 3 games? Washington or Oregon State, Washington State, Oregon.
I mean,
Like,
they should be
buddy,
almost like number one.
I
If
was
they
going to
win
say,
out,
if they win out, they should be the 1 seed. Like, that
Yeah.
would be incredibly impressive, man, for real. Like, that would be that would be very, very impressive if they win out. The odds are they won't, because
they won't.
they've barely won a couple of these games. They have looked pretty bad in a couple of these games, and odds are they're going to lose one of these.
Luck runs out unless you're like 2002 Ohio State. So,
yeah.
MyBookie.ag promo code is Warchant. That is an instant cash deposit bonus. Take advantage of it when you go to MyBookie.ag, where you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Live casino, futures, live in-game betting, all the good stuff that you could want as a sports fan. All at your fingertips, mobile devices, laptop, whatever you want, all over at MyBookie.ag. Let's look at, I know the Heisman. Might have told you bad stuff on Jordan Travis. I think he's 7th now. Plus 5,600. Jalen Milrose ahead of him. Carson Beck's ahead of him. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix minus 101, the odds-on favorite currently right now. Penix has got some value. I mean, I don't think Washington's going to win out, but if they do, he's winning the Heisman. So let's see here. Why does it go to it takes me to the conference championship odds. We don't care about conference championship odds. We want national championship odds. That would be none other than Michigan plus 210, Georgia plus 240, Florida State 5th, plus 950. Oregon with better odds to win it all than Florida State. No respect. No respect. Take advantage of that, though. Plus 950. MyBookie.ag. Corey and I will give you our weekly picks on tomorrow's show, so tune in for that. MyBookie.ag. Promo code WARCHANT. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Michael Langston, recruiting analyst for warchant.com. Senior. I'm going to call him you. Senior recruiting analyst for warchant.com. Weird week, Michael. Listen, I'm not trying to take anything for granted here, but this is like this week, North Alabama FCS team. It's like, your spouse throwing you a birthday party, but she's telling you everybody that's going to be there, every single present they're going to bring you. And it's like, cool, that's great. I get to see everybody, but I know it's going to happen. Like there's, we know it's going to happen. But it feels like on the recruiting front, there might be conditions coming together for some extraordinarily good news possibly this week for Florida State. What do you know right now, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly things that are trending in a good direction, or a direction that I'm monitoring heavily. Obviously, the guy that we talked about a lot this weekend was 5-star plus, and I think the nation's number one prospect is Jeremiah Smith, who's committed to Ohio State. That's a guy that FSU hosted for the Miami weekend. They knocked it out of the park, man. I mean, this was phenomenal. It was the first time that when I talked to my contacts and different people, that I actually heard like they feel like, yeah, this could happen. This is very real. This could happen. And it just continued to materialize as the weekend went on. Even Sunday and even Monday, you started to hear a lot more positivity of their chances, and I think there's a real shot with FSU to pull this off, and I think it could happen, but obviously I'm still checking with a lot of different angles and stuff that's going on in the recruitment, but I think there's some real momentum of this potentially you know FSU having a path to get this done, and it's now not just, hey, let's talk about it. Jeremiah Smith, he's good, and FSU's 10-0 and they're winning. And hey, yeah, they might have a shot. It's now like, yeah, there's a real shot of indications I've gotten throughout the weekend of their just how Smith views them, and also just how he's feeling them.
How much of it, I don't know, man. Is it the 10-0? How much of it is, Ohio State just kind of looks pedestrian on offense? Maybe this crazy run of awesome quarterbacks is kind of drying up there in Columbus. What do you think the conditions were that kind of came together that put us at this point right now?
Well, I think a lot of it's not just the production of FSU. That was a big deal to Jeremiah going into the season. That he wanted to see, hey, is this a fluke, or are these guys really looking this good? And then certainly, I think adding guys like Keon Coleman was a big deal because Jeremiah loves watching him. That's probably one of his favorite players in the country. He's even called Keon the best receiver in the country. But I think a lot of it is Mike Norvell from the start. They really set this and planted those seeds in June and July when he had 2 multiple day visits. And he even said, I jumped back when he said this. He said, I think Mike Norvell might be one of the best coaches in college football anywhere. And it's like, you're committed to Ohio State. Like, and you're saying that about another coach. And I that's what I was thinking. I didn't say that Jeremiah, but that's what I was thinking. So that really raised my eyebrows. So I knew that the relationship, and he viewed Mike Norvell in a different way than probably any other coach in the country. So once that product started showing and then the Keon explosion started happening, the LSU game, Jeremiah Smith was there to watch that. I think that was a big deal. And then kind of the climax of it all where, you see them beat Miami. Keon makes a big play near the end of the game, then gets a touchdown, and then just the excitement level of what they're doing as a program. He already loves this coach. He already loves Dugans. I think that's where it kind of built up, and that's where we're at right now.
And Columbus is gray and cold and gross, Jeremiah. Just saying. If that's important to you, I'm just saying. Michael, as we sit here, they're ranked 3rd right now. Like not in hybrid high school portal combination like that. They're number 3 when it comes to recruiting high school prospects for the 2024 cycle. What happens if they get Jeremiah Smith?
If they get Jeremiah Smith, then now you see a realistic, and I am not going to lie, guys. I have no problem admitting when I'm off on something. I had felt no chance that they would push for that number 1 spot. But now you get that dude, there's a combination where they can get there. Now, is it still a reach? Probably, for number 1, but number 2, oh, definitely they can get that. But now you get a few prospects to turn your way that like if you flip LJ McCray, who's another 5-star, you get a Kai Bates or somebody like that, or some other prospect. Yeah, there's a scenario where FSU could reach that point. But is it going to be tough? Yeah, it will be. But I think it really, not only if you got Jeremiah, it would just generate an excitement level I think they haven't even seen, I think, yet with FSU recruiting, because that's the number 1 player in the country. That's the guy that's committed to a team that's been a lot more consistent than FSU has, the last 5-6 years. So I think if you have that, it's going to generate excitement through everyone. So it's going to send shockwaves through, the recruiting community, and just how other kids view FSU if you were to land a Jeremiah Smith. So yeah, it greatly changes things if FSU is able to pull that off.
You mentioned some other names. We'll get to them shortly here. Kai Bates, LJ McCray. But let's say on offense real quick. Cam Coleman, another standout wide receiver. Obviously, things in College Station. He's committed to Texas A&M right now as we talk about things. Don't know how solid that really is going to last. But, he's from Phoenix City, Alabama, very close to Auburn.
Right.
But sounds like vibes are kind of trending well, I guess the kids would say it. But is there enough room? Is there room in the class for both those guys? And not so much like numbers, but like not ego, but I mean, do both those guys look at each other and think like, cool, we could play together, or like, I want to be the guy here. Maybe one of the guys scares the other guy off.
Yeah, that was kind of Cam's reaction when we did our video interview with him on Saturday night. It was kind of like, oh yeah, oh boy, if they got both of them, it was kind of like, like a dynamic duo, or if you have Batman and Superman at the same place, it's like they were cool with it. So it wasn't like, hey, this is going to scare off another guy. Now it might scare off, maybe guys that are in the class that maybe not that FSU wouldn't take them, but they might look around if they were to get both of those guys. But Cam Coleman visited FSU this weekend. He's visited a lot more regularly, so there's obviously some buzz in recruitment with him and FSU. He also visited Florida, some other schools. You mentioned he's from Phoenix City, Alabama. The guys, I've been up there. That's like 10 minutes away from Auburn, so there's certainly a closeness there. I would lean a little more towards Auburn because of that location and logistics, but I think FSU's very much in there a lot more than I probably thought going in to visit, just based on what I've heard out of the visit with Cam Coleman. So yeah, they could certainly nab him as well. And that's a guy that really, I think the product has just surged them in that recruitment. No, I do not anticipate or expect him to end up in Texas A&M's class. I do think it's going to be FSU or Auburn. I don't see that happening. They don't even have a coach, so that's just not feasible. But I do think FSU's battling Auburn. This isn't like, oh, it's like a lockdown like I thought for sure with that Auburn. I think Auburn's likely, but I don't think it's like for sure.
A little bit behind the curtain, everybody. Just so you know, Michael and I hung out earlier this week and talked about most of this stuff, but then everything kind of changed on Monday evening.
Yeah.
So then we caught back up later here in the week. Kai Bates is a guy that you mentioned earlier, and things were maybe trending to him opening up his recruitment, but he did decommit ultimately on Monday evening. Where do things stand? Not only with Kai Bates, but I guess let's start there, but also the secondary. It seems like there's other pieces on that back end of the defense that Florida State's heavy in the mix for that's of the elite variety.
Yeah, there's a lot of still stuff to figure out with the defensive back because there's technically one spot, but I could see a situation where they take two. I don't think it's going beyond that. Um, when we talked first with Aslan, just to give you full closure, guys, I thought it was one spot. So that kind of changed and kind of on Monday evening. Kai Bates, as people know, decommitted. I let our members know, like, I did not anticipate him to ending up in that LSU class before he decommitted. Everything I was getting was, yeah, he will not be there. I think there's just not, there's some things that behind the scenes I think just isn't comfortable for him that he likes there at LSU. So I think what I was waiting to see was where there'll be a green light. What I mean is FSU is he a take? Is he a guy they're going to push for? I got that last night that I felt like there is a green light for FSU, and I was told before the visit that his preference was FSU. So if that were to happen, so I think that greatly increases things. Now the confusion in that with is he might visit Tennessee, so they're hosting obviously Georgia this weekend, a big game. So I think they're trying to see kind of what that happens, and if he takes that visit, obviously if he takes the visit, then it'll be a battle because that's going to be an incredible atmosphere. And then two, but if he doesn't take the visit, if you hear something like, oh, we canceled it, I think it's looking really good, for FSU. Then you have the other dynamics of the defensive backs. You have Xavier Lucas, who visited over the weekend, 3-star DB from committed to Wisconsin. He's actually from the same school as where Patrick Surtain was coached at for a while, American Heritage. He's a guy they covet a lot. I know they like him, and he's a safety, and that's a big point, guys, because corners they feel really good about, but they kind of want some guys that play either a mixture of corner and safety, or there's a pure safety, and that's why I think Lucas is so coveted. And then I think the number one, in my opinion, is Zay Mincy, who visited certainly LJ McCray. Certainly, if you can pull off a Zay Mincy, which I think they're, as I pointed out on Sunday with our subscribers, I think FSU is certainly a real factor in that recruitment. He really likes what Surtain's doing. Obviously, when you watch FSU beat Miami or you see all these things of what they're doing on the field with their DBs, that's attractive. So I think he would be the one. And then if you get him, I was told, like, if you get that guy, that's going to, shift some things potentially with LJ McCray. So there's a lot of dynamics that play into there, but I would say 1 to 2 that they would take. And that's a change from what I originally told Aslan. So, a lot going on with the defensive backs.
Crazy. Kai Bates, 4-star out of Edgewater. Zay Mincy, as Michael said, Daytona Beach, mainland, same school as LJ McCray. He, too, a 4-star defensive back. Let's talk about LJ McCray.
Yeah.
Florida was in Baton Rouge, so it made sense for him to be in Tallahassee to watch that Miami game. But, he's still here. The lines of communication are still open. Florida State has the opportunity next weekend to go into the Swamp and maybe show just how far ahead they are as a program. Again, I don't know how much that will factor into things, but just what are some of the trending, variables or things that you're hearing and feeling around his recruitment right now, Michael, that seems to be portending to things being well for Florida State right now?
Yeah, I mean, LJ's a kid that's pretty loyal. That's why he took so long to make his decision. He gave everyone a chance. Obviously, FSU got the last official visit, and the important thing to remember there is when he took that, he was right after that visit. We started to hear like, "Hey, it's going to be FSU. It's likely going to be FSU that for this decision coming up this week." Then Florida made a late push, and then he committed. And then Florida started having, we started seeing more of their issues on defense, and then every week, week by week, and now there's, kind of rumors about, hey, they could make a change on the defensive side at coaching, and now that's kind of opened the door for FSU, and I think that was part of the reason too. He was on campus this weekend. LJ kind of played it off like, hey, I'm just tagging along with my teammate, and he was kind of blocking it off when he talked to the media, but you could tell behind the scenes, like, you don't take a visit like that unless it's like you want to see something or you want to be there or you're comfortable with them. So I think FSU is still very much in it. I don't think they're definitely not waving the white flag. I was even told that there's a chance that LJ could come back for another visit before December when he decides or signs. So I think it's very much in play, and certainly it's a mixture of the coaching, but also, like I said, keep in mind FSU was the favorite going into that week of the decision after that official visit. So I think there's still a lot going on. I'd still lean a little more towards Florida because you would think loyalty and all that stuff, but I would I think FSU is really very much still a factor in that recruitment.
If they get McCray and Jeremiah Smith, is that the number one class in the nation?
In my opinion, it is.
Okay.
Will it be? I don't know.
Yeah.
If the numbers work out, I don't really crunch the numbers as far as what means the most. But I would say they would have to be. It would be a strong, a good chance, a solid chance of them being number one because you're talking about two guys that have ascended on the on three rankings. I mean, Jeremiah Smith's like either one or two, I can't remember, and then I think LJ's like 10th or something like that, or maybe even higher than that.
I think he's
So
20. He's 25th.
Okay,
Jeremiah Smith is the number 2 overall prospect in
okay,
the entire country, according to
okay.
Unveiled.
Either way, both of them are very high. So you're adding 2 5 stars to a number 3 class. It's hard to see that couldn't happen, especially if you add a Kai Bates or a Zay Mincy in there. That's really going to, and we haven't even talked about if you add a Cam Coleman. So I think there's pieces that they can add that can really push for that top class.
Georgia's number 1 right now. They got 3 5-stars. Ohio State's got 5 5-stars. Florida State has 3. So does Florida. If you poached one away from Florida and one away from Ohio State, I mean, you have 5. Ohio State drops to 4. So
yeah,
that'd be fun to see. Again, cool thing is Florida State's got lots to play for and lots to look forward to on the field as well. A lot of this information was obviously already up on the PRB, the Premium Recruiting Board. Michael, so loyal to our valued subscribers, always getting stuff out to them first and foremost. So highly recommend you subscribe to warchant.com to get all that information you just heard in easy-to-read form right on the website. You can check it out all the time. Michael, man, I know you're super busy, man. We really appreciate you taking out the time out and letting us know how things are going on the recruiting front, man.
Anytime.
And that is what we call a wrap, everybody. That's it for the show. Thanks for hanging tough. A little bit longer than usual, but good stuff in there. Everything pertinent. Florida State takes on North Alabama this weekend. Obviously, as you know, 6:30 CW game. We'll have the Warchant Report powered by Cummins dropping on Thursday. Jeff Cameron show 1 to 3 o'clock rest of the week. Pre-game show going off at Hotel Indigo. Meet and greet at Corner Pocket on Friday, 5 to 6 o'clock. And we'll be at practice today. So there'll be footage, there'll be interviews, observations. Maybe not observations. It's North Alabama week, guys. Come on. I mean, we can all kind of not mail it in, but, let's not redline. Let's look at the bigger picture. We got big things looming in the future. So everything you could want over at warchant.com, the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Take advantage of it. Thanks for listening. 5-star rating and review. Please hit the thumbs up. For Corey and Michael, I'm Aslan. Thank you for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.